accomplished and honestly all my mentors. So I wanted to introduce everybody to them. But first, we wanted to let you guys know that we have a raffle going on. If you guys probably heard from Gary here, it is what we're calling for charity's sake, like sake. We're doing times here. We're super funny. And just like an FYI, we are serving unlimited sake. So feel free to go grab more shots later. And Gary, do you mind explaining the game?
Yeah, so if you donate $10, you'll get a raffle ticket, and you have to guess the number of times that our lovely speakers are going to say the word Asian. Asian American counts, AAPI counts, the acronym's AZN, that also counts. And so if you guess the correct number of times, you get sake unlimited for the rest of the night, and you could give it out to anybody here. So let's turn the networking after this into an after party. Alright, so and if you didn't get a chance to get a raffle ticket, you could go to the back. Our team is in the back, so that way you can get a raffle ticket and enjoy yourselves.
Yeah.
Hey.
So a little bit about myself. My name is Amy, and I'm the founder of Kitsby. We are a culinary kid experience company, and we have this beautiful space here that we are hoping to use more for community events like this. And if anybody has any questions about Kitsby at all, I'd love to tell you more after during the networking event. But today here we have 4 people. We have the Tochi people, Tochi Snacks, Dina and Ian. I'm going to give you guys an introduction. Basically, Dina, do you mind me asking for the CEO?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So Dina, she is a CEO, and Ian is the COO of Tochi Snacks, and they're both co-founders. Tochi is an Asian American snack brand bringing worldly taste to you in the form of a crisp and a crunch. Their flavors are inspired by iconic Asian dishes they grew up eating, but reimagined into the perfect snack for any occasion. Okay, and then next we have Kevin Wong, who is a co-founder of Lunar. Lunar is an award-winning craft hard seltzer made with real Asian fruits based in Brooklyn, and you can find their flavors for yuzu, lychee, plum, passion fruit at your local Trader Joe's. Woo! And then Wendy Wang is the co-founder and COO of Umami Cart. Umami Cart is an online Asian grocer offering curated selections of high quality and fairly priced fresh produce, meats, snacks, pantry essentials, and all delivered directly to your door. They make it super easy to stock up on Asian staples from beloved brands, discover the newest Asian American food products, and get recipe inspirations for your next great meal. Okay, and today's event. Yay! Okay, so today's event we are going to be donating. This is a charity event. The 2 charities that we have selected are Send Chinatown Love and Immigrant History Initiative. I'll tell you guys a little bit more about them. Send Chinatown Love wants to create a digital community for Chinatown's restaurants to sustain themselves during COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Send Chinatown Love hopes to build a community of Asian American restaurants that can become self-sustaining digitally. And about Immigrant History Initiative, they believe in the power of storytelling and to empower and drive change. Their mission is to empower Asian Americans, build empathy for multiple generations of immigrant communities, and foster solidarity to address hate and intolerance. So we are raising money for them. If you haven't donated yet, I will be passing around a jar. I know it's like kind of like church serving, but if you guys haven't, and if you guys want it, you can scan the code and you can donate there, or you can just drop some cash in. Okay. So to start off, I'm going to ask you guys, I did give you guys a brief introduction about everyone here, but I'm going to ask you guys a little bit more about your specifics, your backgrounds, where you came from, basically your life story in like 5 minutes. Yeah, so Ian, you can go first.
my name is Ian. I was born and raised in Singapore, and after, I guess, high school, I came to New York for college. I worked in finance for a few years, didn't really like it. It was kind of boring, but I had to fulfill my Asian parents' dreams. So I said, okay, I'll do it for 2 years, and then I'm out. And so I went out, worked in some different startups in the tech space, and a couple of years later, Dean and I formed, I guess, Tochi Snacks together with my brother, Mark, who's also one of the other co-founders. So yeah, it's been quite a journey so far, and I think I'll hand over to Dina.
Hi, I'm Dina. I was born in China, but I grew up in New York. Similarly, went to high school here, went to college. Also worked in finance for a little bit longer than Ian, for about 5 years, until I started realizing that it might not have been the career path for me. Did a lot of things, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and it was only after, I guess you can call it like an eat, pray, love trip to Southeast Asia when I discovered all of these like amazing flavors that I felt like had very little representation here. And I kind of wanted to come back and create something that can help bridge those two communities a little bit better and help showcase all of these amazing flavors and the cultures that inspire them.
So similarly to both of these, I was born in the U.S. and I started my career also in finance. I quit after a year because that shit sucks. I joined a tech company, worked there for about 8 years, and then I started learning. I'm a Taiwanese American second gen, and yeah, I am learning what the hell I am doing with alcohol. It's so different than what I was doing before. So, pass to you.
Thanks. I'm Wendy. I'm one of the co-founders of Umami Cart. Really unique about me is that I also started my career in finance.
This is the finance panel. Got him.
But I was born and raised here in the States. I grew up in Connecticut. Worked in finance to start off my career, but always really wanted to do my own thing. My family is in the F&B business, and so when Andrea, who is the co-founder and CEO, was building out her founding team, she reached out to me to ask a lot about like supplier relationships and how to work with distributors, and I just love the mission of Umami Cart so much. I think as an Asian American, we all have some stories of like having really hard access to Asian ingredients and the foods that we love to eat and the foods that we grew up with, and so I was just so inspired. I joined the team. And we just celebrated our 1 year this past March.
All right, so all of us are actually on the same journey. I think all of us are in food, trying to navigate our way as Asian American first/second generation. And I would say entrepreneurship's hard.
Yep.
So I'm gonna like pass it down. You guys can go directly down, but do you feel like you were born to be an entrepreneur, or do you think that's something that you can grow into? And was this always something that you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. I guess for me, growing up, I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing. When I was 14, when you first set up your Gmail address, my Gmail address was industries@gmail.com. And I still use that Gmail account today, so please don't spam it. That's not an Asian thing to do. So, but yeah, I think for me personally, I think it was something that I always wanted to do. I think it's because I just don't like taking instructions from other people. But like with entrepreneurship, there's the upside and the downside. So on the good part of it is you don't have to listen to other people in some sense. But on the bad part of it, you really just have to navigate your way around it. And I'm sure, all these other Asian American founders will concur. Dina?
Sorry, what was the question again? Was it
Like, do you think that entrepreneurship is something that you can grow into, or have you always been an entrepreneur at heart?
I think the nomenclature for entrepreneurship doesn't exist, right? There's no set path for anyone, and for myself, I definitely did not see my future being this way. Both my parents are in academics, they're PhDs, and they value school a lot. And I'm like the least educated in my family, and they always remind me of that every time we get together. So it's not a fun time.
Classic Asian parents.
Exactly, very Asian. The most Asian thing I think is when I left to start this, I didn't tell them until I think I left in April, and I was like formulating this idea for Tochi, and my dad actually found out Christmas of that year from my LinkedIn when I finally went in and changed that. I no longer work at Bank of America. And my dad called me, he's like, don't come home for Christmas until you explain this. Yeah, I mean it was tough, but like we're over it now. But there you go, Asian parents. So definitely not something that I foresaw for myself. But I think the beauty of it is once you kind of get started, and if it's something that you're really passionate about, you get hooked on it like a drug, right? And it's like it becomes your baby. It becomes something that you nurture, and you become rather unperturbed with the downs of it, how like stressful or like depressing they may be, and you are just always like trying to achieve that next high, whether it be like getting a new account, getting a new product in. So it becomes like something that you nurture a lot, and it helps you build a lot of character, and it helps you learn a lot about yourself. And I definitely felt like I matured a lot throughout this entire journey, and I feel like everyone can say the same thing. So not something I foresaw, but I wouldn't choose another career if I had no choice.
Before we go on, whose parents use LinkedIn here? Can we do a quick poll? Like, whose parents use LinkedIn?
Your parents don't.
Look, that's 2 hands.
Yeah, no, it's true.
I'm so surprised.
My
I guess
parents, academia.
Oh, that's fair.
So it's,
I was like, what? Okay, anyways, entrepreneurship. So my first entrepreneurial venture was in Neopets. Anyone play Neopets here? Alright, so you guys know how basically they're like selling stuff at the stores, and you can like watch that, when they're gonna like restock inventory, and they have like good stuff, and so you like refresh the page and you want to get the good stuff, and so you're like there just refreshing.
Yep.
Second comes in, you cop it and you resell it. So that was my first entrepreneurial like venture. And I was middle school, and I was like, this is so fun. I'm making so much money on Neopets. But like besides that little entrepreneurial venture in college, growing up, as an Asian American, I just listened to my parents, right? Same kind of story where you're a doctor, lawyer, whatever. And so I spent my entire time growing up listening to other people. Oh, this is what you should do. You should have an internship your 3rd year. You should be taking these classes. You should have this major. And all the way up until I got my finance job at JP Morgan, I was my whole life was listening to people. I realized I never took agency and made a decision for myself, for my career. And when I quit after 1 year, I felt like that was the first time I actually made a choice for myself. And that was very liberating. I really enjoyed that feeling. I was like, wow, I'm actually doing something that I'm not just like someone's puppet, just like doing and operating without thinking. And I joined Yext, which is an enterprise software company here in New York. And I was very lucky, I was very blessed. I was able to start 3 different teams at that company. And each time it's, when you're starting teams at a company, you're basically an entrepreneur, but it's internal, it's entrepreneur, right? And so you kind of get that little taste of what it's like to start a company. Now, obviously without the financial risk and without all the other shit that comes with it. And so I was like, oh shit, I'm hooked on it now. And so with Lunar, I feel like I was always meant to do something myself and to start a company. And so I think this is pretty natural, but definitely didn't expect it to be so hard. So anyways, it's very hard. Make sure you have a co-founder, because it's very helpful.
It's hard.
Hard.
If you guys don't take away anything from this panel, just know that he came out of the womb being a hustler. So
On Neopets, I wonder if I bought something from you. I really want that rainbow paintbrush.
yes.
That's premium.
Wait, how many people here know what Neopets is?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're not that
More
old.
than people on LinkedIn.
Definitely.
I think. Wow, I feel like I can't remember. The question is am I?
Entrepreneurship.
Yeah, was I?
Did you
Yeah,
always know
always-
you wanted to be one?
Yes, I think so, because I think, like, ever since I was young, similar, like, I always wanted to do my own thing. I was very fortunate almost that my dad was an entrepreneur, so seeing him build his own business, I also saw, like, how hard it is. He actually then didn't really want that life for me, but, like, I was super inspired by how hardworking he was and how, like, dedicated he was and how passionate he was about his job. And so when I was young, I always started, like, my own stuff, too, like, I would sell like candy on the school bus for like $1, you know, like
That's
like
cool.
cash.
I totally did that as well.
Yeah,
I bought it for
exactly.
10 cents and I sold it for $1.
Yeah.
And actually auctioned off the candy as well.
That's
You
scary.
go to like Costco and buy like the whole thing and then like sell it. Yeah, and so like little things like that, I always knew I wanted to do something myself. But I think maybe along the way, you start becoming more and more like risk adverse and more rational on like what you want to do with your career. So I kind of took the middle ground where I went to business school, so I can say like, oh, I have a safety net, but really have 2 years to explore and do my own thing. And so that's exactly what I did. I spent 2 years like brainstorming, ideating, doing a lot of ideas, like working in VC for a little bit, and then I was really fortunate to be able to now join Umami Cart and be able to build something I really want. And then for entrepreneurship, I really think it's two things. It's like you do have to have like the innate passion for what you're working on and what you want to build, because the idea to you has to be so monumental and like so motivating that you are willing to do it 24/7. And until like I really think that passion will have to like come from something that you're really inspired by. And then, but then on the other side, on growing into entrepreneurship, it's a lot of the grit and the hard work that it takes. I think like these founders, like we all talk about it, but it's actually like a lot of work. And there's sometimes you feel like you're just like trying to make, what is that saying? Like trying to make fire with no sticks or whatever that saying is. Yeah. It's just like super hard, and but you're driven by your passion, and then you like build up your grit and your ability to like be tough and work through it to be an entrepreneur.
I think entrepreneurship is not like a linear journey, right? Most people, when they are born, they go through school, you go, grade 1, grade 2, it's like a very linear path. You work for a big company, it's also very linear, after 2 years you get promoted, after 2 years you get promoted. So it's a very structured path, right? But for entrepreneurship, it's more like, you go up, suddenly, oh, you got an account super high, and then like, oh, you have no revenue for like 2 years or something like that, and then you go even higher, and you go even lower. So you just have to be prepared for that roller coaster ride, which is not, I think, something that we were innately thought to do, going through like a standardized schooling system.
It's like that squiggle line where it's just like a line and then it's like, and then you come out and then maybe like up a little bit. But there's a lot of rewarding and I guess very pivotal moments in entrepreneurship. So I think leading into the next question, we are going to focus on past, present, and future today in our conversation. So for the past, you guys all mentioned you come from a finance background, which I think is very interesting in itself. It's just like building yourself as an entrepreneur, right? So it's really hard to kind of pivot or break through to decide I'm going to quit my job and do this full time. I'm sure there's a bunch of people here who are interested in hearing your story about how you decided when it was like the risks of actually doing your own making your own brand, company, etc., and community versus slaving away for someone else. I don't know, or just like a corporate job. Like, how did you outweigh the risks and benefits?
Let's go this way this time.
For me, I guess it was honestly just like, I remember just sitting at my job before and then being like so not motivated and just like always thinking of something else I want to do. And then to me, it was almost like there's no right time to do it. There's no like perfect time where it's like, oh, this is the right time. So it's like now or never. I think it's better. I'm pretty decisive, so when I decide something, it's like I'm ready. So I remember just like making that decision right when I was at work, like, and I'm like, okay, at least I'm gonna apply to business school, like, and then I'm gonna just jump into this and like spend 2 years at least to do something. So I think it's just maybe like, yeah, maybe not like the forward, but like the hatred for the past. Like, cannot stand another day.
So I actually started a company before that failed. This was during banking, and I hated banking so much that I was like, I need to like figure some shit out with my life. Like I didn't want to be 40 years old and looking like the EDs and MDs that I worked with. I was like, that's not for me. So I started a company. It was called Apartment Insider. We did apartment visiting as a service. So when you move to a major metropolitan area, right, you gotta fly there. You gotta like find a broker. You gotta like get hotels. It's pretty expensive. And so like, what if you had a friend in the city that could visit and do video like viewings of apartments for you? So I ran that for like 11 months in 2014. And my two big lessons learned. One was I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. That was like lesson number one. And like I feel like in college, like at least for me, there's this kind of, I think Kanye has said it, like the swagger of a college kid. Like that phrase is true. Like you kind of don't know what you don't know what you don't know. And so I feel like that arrogance was there where I just felt like, oh, I can do this, and I could not. I had no idea what I was doing. And then the second part was, even though I had some traction, I didn't really believe in myself. I didn't commit to being like, I think this is a great idea. Like I spent time working on this. I think this is real. Like maybe I should go at it full time. Maybe I should get someone else to join. Maybe I should get investors. Like I didn't really believe in myself. I didn't have the confidence. And so like I shut that down. Like I then decided I needed to go join a startup to like figure out what I'm doing, to like learn. That's why I took the next step in my career. But I think that lesson really stayed with me up until now, because like with Lunar, right, for us, when we launched, we spent 2 years working on it. We spent 2 years brewing, having friends come over, try our drinks. When we launched during like the winter of 2020, which is pandemic, we sold out, and I was like, oh shit, like we're on something here. People clearly like this. And with that, I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna make the same mistake I made 8 years ago. I'm gonna go at it full time. And maybe that was like extreme, like pendulum swinging the other way kind of moment where like I like didn't want to make the same mistakes I did last time. So I don't know. It's kind of like a live your life with no regrets kind of moment. And I was lucky that I had the abilities to pay rent and do this full time. So I don't know if that's helpful.
I guess for me, my story is a little bit more pragmatic. I was in banking for a little bit longer. I was there for 5 years, and after year 3, you either go and do something else or you get promoted. Ironically, after I got promoted, that's when like things started to fall apart for me. I remember like, once you get promoted, you get to do a little bit less of the bitch work behind the screens. You get to travel a little bit more. And that was supposed to be like all the glamorous things that people were looking forward to. And it was all glamorous for like, I think the first like 2 months or so. And then afterwards it just became exhausting. And it was like traveling with my MDs and, like going to pitch meetings with them. It was like a harbinger of what my life would be like if I stayed on this path. And after a year, I started realizing that like I didn't enjoy that at all. Pitching was like not my thing. Like talking with clients over at dinner and like chatting about their kids was like not my thing either. Like I don't want to talk to this guy that's like 40 years older than me about his like children who are like 10 years older than me. It was a lot. And I think I spent a good year debating on like what I would do. And even leading up to like when I finally gave in my papers, I was like, am I really gonna do this? And I still remember my group as saying like, can you stay till June until the interns come? And this is when I wanted to quit in April, and I was like, sorry, I'm leaving the country, so no. Which I actually was leaving the country. But I think after I left, my idea was I'm gonna give myself 6 months to eat, pray, love. And in that time frame, I'll like study for my GMATs and like go to business school. But it just so happened that during my travels, I fell in love with this idea. I fell in love with this passion to start Tochi. And when I came back, I was like, okay, I could either go to business school and hold off for 2 years, or I could just go at it, not knowing anything that I was doing. Like I had no experience in food, no experience in branding, marketing, whatever you name it. I can just build Excel sheets and that's about it, which is not very helpful in building a business. That's like the least helpful thing. But I think like it was that little bit of like optimistic naivety in me, where it's like I don't know what I'm doing, but let's just go for it, right? Like now looking back, like would I do that again? Like absolutely not. Like holy shit, that was such a crazy idea. Knowing what I know now, but I think back then I had this like whimsicalness that allowed me to kind of just try it, right? And I think that was something magical, and I don't think I would do it again. But having done that, like you kind of learn the ins and outs, and you start to figure out things that work and things that don't. And luckily, like you don't make a mistake that's big enough to like, you know, sink you completely. When you can like recover and learn something and move on, and hopefully, you know, not make the same mistake twice. But that's my story.
I think for me, I guess because I'm born and raised in Singapore and I was here on a work visa, I think, you know, starting a company was a little bit more challenging. There is a ton of restrictions, and I didn't want to get deported before I started anything. And similar to Kevin, actually, in my last year of college, I did co-found a company in the restaurant space as well. And basically, the product for that was similar to OpenTable, where you can make a reservation, but at that time, you know, we would target the slots that were non-peak and would be able to give a discount on top of your check, right? So I think there are a lot of other companies that are doing that now. And we got pretty far, you know, we got quite a lot of restaurants to sign up, but I think, you know, again, it was something that was fun, but I wasn't like truly passionate about. And so, you know, eventually when my full-time offer came, I had to take it, one, because I would be deported otherwise. And two, you know, I had to fulfill my Asian parents' dreams.
True.
And so yeah, so I think my approach at that point of my life, I decided, okay, I'm gonna try to have a more of a structured approach. I'm gonna start with a big corporate company and slowly work my way down into smaller companies until I get my green card or whatever, you know, like have the ability to start a company and then do that then. So yeah, I think entrepreneurship in general is, I felt the same way, you know, like in the sense that I didn't want to be my MDs, and I think a lot of my passion for starting my own thing was really impatience. You know, I didn't want to be 50 before I get to like relax and enjoy life. I thought, you know, I'm so smart. At 25, I'm going to sell my company for $10 million and I'm going to retire. But I mean, obviously that didn't happen.
Yet.
He's no longer 25.
Yeah.
I know he looks Asian.
Oh,
No
you
longer
guys are
25.
killing it.
What do you mean I look Asian? I am Asian.
That is true. You are very Asian.
Anyways.
I'm also Asian.
Asian.
But what I will say is that I think, like, you know, for me it was very clear that I didn't want to do like a corporate structured job. But I think entrepreneurship is not necessarily for everyone, right? You can really live a fulfilling life as well if you're working, you know, 8 hours and then spending the rest of your time doing what you enjoy. Like that's a very fulfilling life as well. And you know, sometimes I think about maybe if I did that, I would also be happy. Maybe I wouldn't be so depressed half the time. But yeah, so I just want to give you like, you know, both sides of it before, you know, some of you want to make a decision or something like that. But yeah, it's something to definitely think about.
Actually, going off of all of your stories, I'm going to share my own because I realized, I guess, my story is not really as conventional. Now that I'm hearing all this finance talk, I actually started Kitsby in college, and it was a part of one of my classes, and I decided, hey, why not? I like this idea, I like to bake, I like to make food, why not? But then immediately, almost instantly, when I came back to New York City from Boston, where I went to school, I realized that life costs money, and there's no way that I can sustain myself with, like, you know, me as a 21-year-old who doesn't know anything. You know, I came out of school with a business degree, and honestly, in Babson, what they teach us, in Babson College in Boston, what they teach us is,
How's your freshman year?
No way.
Yeah.
Crazy. But, like, they basically teach you, if you're not good at anything, learn a little bit of everything, so you're not a professional at anything really when you're graduating. So when I came out, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of know about marketing, I kind of know about accounting, but not like fully in depth. So here I was struggling as a 21-year-old, trying to figure out what to do with Kitsby, how to get funding, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna get a full-time job and do this like on the side for maybe 2 years, and that's exactly what I did. So I was in real estate development for 2 years, and actually to this day I'm very thankful that I did end up doing something corporate related, because now I know I do not want to. Yeah.
Me.
Oh yeah, that's so crazy. We have to
Yeah.
talk about that.
Well.
But okay, I know food is such a hard business. I talk about this with Kevin all the time, but alcohol is a really hard business too. How in the world did you guys choose to do food and beverage? Because this is like the lowest margin of all startups.
Was that the question?
Yeah, for everybody.
Okay.
So
very
yes,
eager to
Kevin
answer.
can start.
Okay, I can start. Yeah, I would say, guys, alcohol, beverage is fucking hard. Like, each drink is so heavy. Think about shipping that. Think about how much it costs to ship anything. Yeah, it sucks. And like, so with Lunar, the way we, how this all happened. I was eating Korean fried chicken with my co-founder Sean, and it was like 10 p.m. We're at Barkogi Midtown East, not the greatest fried chicken, I will say, but we were there nonetheless, and we were like,
This is live.
why are we? I feel like I'm cursing quite a lot. That's just where I am. So we're eating Korean fried chicken, and we just realized that, like, look, we're drinking Bud Light and like lime White Claw. Like, why is such authentic food being paired with such inauthentic drinks? Like, why didn't the owner or the manager spend just like a little bit more time thinking about what drinks they should have on the drink menu? Well, it turns out that the alcohol industry is 93% male and 88% white, and that shows in the types of products that are created. Like, that's why so many communities are overlooked in the industry. And so we were like, look, why don't we try to do something that actually resonates with me, with him, and with kind of us as a community? So we spent 2 years brewing, like, and this is all before even looking into like what are typical gross margins and like alcohol. Like, we did zero work on that. Like, this
All
is
the finance. Like,
Yeah.
straight out the door. That was too long ago. Like, it was really driven by passion. We had over 600 different recipe iterations to create what we have now as Lunar, because we wanted it to taste so good that, like, when you drink it, like for me as a Taiwanese American, I spent my summers in Taiwan, and our lychee flavor is based on my memories of, like, it's like August, and I'm in Taiwan. My grandma is taking me to the fruit stalls, and we're buying lychee. You bite into it, and it's like the sweltering tropical heat and the flesh of the lychee. Like, that is a moment right there. That is that's a core memory for me, and I feel like it's a core memory for many other people. And how do I replicate that really authentically in Can? Like, how do I take that and share that experience with more people? And so, like, that was the passion that really drove us for 2 years. Clearly no math involved, no thinking involved. We were just like, yeah, let's just make something delicious and see what happens. And next thing you know, we're running an alcohol business that it's a tough one, right? It's low margin, it's driven by wholesale, like retail. You're selling to grocery stores, you're selling to restaurants and bars. DTC is not doable because in alcohol, there's legislation from 100 years ago, the Prohibition era, that states that you can't do that. Like, a alcohol brand cannot directly sell to a customer. Like, even right now, if you go to drinklunar.com and buy a pack, it's actually not directly from me. It's through other people. Like, online shipping is actually fulfilled by a retailer, and so, like, our margins don't improve that way. And it's just all of these nuances that you're not going to learn that in a HBS case study. You're not going to learn that online. Like, I tell now there's so many other Asian alcohol founders that reach out and they're like, hey, like, we'd love to pick your brain. And like, I'm just like, guys, don't do it. It's very hard. Like, you should do it, but like, it's just really tough. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of grit, as when you were saying, like, it takes a lot of grit. So yeah, I don't know. I think if I had known what I know now, I probably would have thought twice. But I think that being naive and just like going at it, I will say it's a good outcome. Today, like, I don't regret it. Hopefully, people who try it also enjoyed it. So like, that makes me happy. So
You made core memories in everybody's
Yes.
night tonight. By
Hope
the way,
so.
we do have Lunar stocked, so if anyone wants to grab one. But
I can go next. Yeah, I think, similar to what Kevin mentioned, I think it's all about, like, it's a business out of passion, right? Passion for spreading Asian culture, or spreading the flavors from, your experiences and your childhood, right? Or not childhood, you weren't drinking. Well, you were eating lychee as a child.
Yes.
Okay.
No drinking. No drinking. I was a good child.
Yeah, I think similarly for Tochi, the idea to do food was never, very innate. It was always that, like I feel like food is the universal language of love, right? When you go travel somewhere, you want to eat what they eat. You want to try the local flavors. You want to try the local dishes. And that's exactly what I did during my Eat, Pray, Love trip. And it's an experience that it's hard for you to really share with other people. It's like hard for you to say like, oh, when you go to Thailand, go to this restaurant and try this dish, right? It's not so accessible to everyone. And I kind of wanted to try to see if I can find a way to make that more accessible, especially in a community where they might not understand the flavors or they might not know about them, but it doesn't mean that they won't find it equally as amazing. And I wanted it to be a way for other people to experience a culture that they might know a little bit about, but allow them to like really see differently, right? Where we can just not have this like presumption of, oh, I don't know about them and therefore like I don't care, but make something that can transport memories or experiences in an accessible way where there's no recipes to follow, there's no like ingredients to buy. It's like experiencing authentic flavors is as easy as opening up a bag of snacks. And it's not the highest margin business either, but I think it was the easiest way in my head or in my mind at the time where I can help share this with everyone. And I think like for food, it has low barriers to entry, right? It's not like if you want to go out and create a software, it's like you got to go find your developers, raise a bunch of money, and there's a lot of risk on the table. I think creating food does have low barriers to entry, but it does have higher rates of success, or like lower chances of success. But I think to spread Asian culture, I think it's either you either really do it in like, I guess like theater or like movies and like Hollywood, or you can spread it through food, right? And I think those are the two ways. I didn't see myself becoming an actress, so I was like, I think food I can do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my experience is really similar to all of yours. Growing up in an Asian household in Singapore, yes, my grandmother would cook for me every night, kind of thing. And specifically for our household, Singapore is kind of like a Asian New York in some sense. But specific to my household, like my heritage is a blend of like Chinese with Malay. It's a very like subset of this population known as Peranakan cooking. And so my grandma was like amazing. Like I always took all that stuff for granted. And it was only until I came to the US for college, I'm like, what do I do now? Everything tastes so bland, And so it was really then that I started like experimenting myself and cooking and like figuring out the flavors, cutting raw chicken for the first time in my college dorm that was like a fifth of the size of this place, and stinking up the hallway with like shrimp paste and all that stuff. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it, and in the beginning it was like cooking and food was really something that I had, that I had to do out of necessity. And so, yeah, when Dina said, oh, I want to start this snacks business, I'm like, yeah, sure.
I said it with more excitement than that.
For the record.
For the record.
I was like, sure, why not? I thought, the first flavors was something that came out of Singapore. I thought I had a lot of contacts in Singapore, and, we had friends who helped formulate the initial recipes and stuff. So it kind of made sense. But, at the back of my mind, obviously, I was half thinking about food is going to be really hard, but over time, it's almost like this, part of it is like this sunk cost has built up, like you either just do or die, you either go all the way.
I feel that every day.
Yeah.
Do or die, let's go.
But yeah, so I think we still feel that every day as well. As long as some of us have been doing this, whether it's 1 year or even 6 years, I don't think any of us can feel like we're there yet. I feel like there's such a long way to go. And yeah, food is something that's so innate to everyone, especially in an Asian household. When your parents, they don't say I love you, say are you hungry, do you want to eat, right? Like I'm sure all of you have some similar experience with that. And yeah, it was a big part of life, and it's just something that I thought it would be cool to share with other people.
Wendy.
Yeah, I think you guys echo everything, that food is such a strong part of our culture. It's the best way to spread our culture. Wait, let me rephrase that. Food is such a big part of Asian culture. It's so nice to spread Asian culture.
I feel like I'm losing.
But I think actually what I really wanted to add on to it is what's really interesting that we found out at Umami Cart, that was what our hypothesis was from the beginning, was that there is a bigger appreciation for Asian culture and Asian cuisine than we think. Like half of our customers are non-Asian, so there is a large portion of the U.S. that are really interested in exploring this, and it's up to us to like share it with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of our products that you guys will all be tasting tonight with your goodie bags when you're on your way out, make sure to grab, is a hot pot soup base. And honestly, that is extremely hard to replicate, something that's coming straight from Sichuan or Chongqing. It's a very specific taste, and the way we're looking at it is we were marketing first to Asian Americans, people who want to be reminded of that flavor you get in, I don't know, in China or in Hong Kong when you're having hot pot. But in fact, we realized in turn our bigger demographic ended up being foreigners who actually really want to learn about Asian culture, and they're willing to do anything to go and out of their way to get, like, you know, Asian, really authentic quality Asian food, even if it is produced by a second generation Asian American. Speaking about Asian American,
But you're not playing.
I just realized I'm not playing.
I wrote Amy into the game.
But actually, I think the Asian American is really important. It's like a flavor that's really uniquely ours, like taking things that we grew up with, that's like very nostalgic, and then adding our own flavors to it.
Yeah, and I was just saying it's insane because right now we are building Asian American culture. I say this every day to like my entire staff. We are building it, what it actually means to be Asian American, because we don't want it to be, you know, Kung Pao chicken or chicken broccoli for the rest of eternity. We're actually carving out a space. So how do you guys feel about carving out a space in your own niche? Because I know, like Wendy, you're basically curating all of these products that people are creating, and you're such a big supporter for Asian American businesses. How, like, what's the vetting process like for you?
We knew that we wanted to grow Umami Cart into your one-stop shop for all your Asian grocery needs, and we're catering to Asian Americans and non-Asians who have a huge appreciation for Asian cuisine. And the way that we shop and the way that we eat is very different from our parents. The brands that we're looking for, the things that we're prioritizing for are probably different than how our parents are shopping at the grocery store. So we built Umami Cart for this, and a large part of it is the merchandising. So we make sure to stock on all the, maybe like the heritage brands, the essentials that we grew up with, like Lee Kum Kee or like Hoi Fong Sriracha, like those like very classic brands, but then also pair it with Asian American brands like Tochi, no lunar yet because alcohol is really hard, remember? But like Fly by Jing, Amsam, like all these awesome brands like doing great stuff in the space. And we curate it across cuisines as well, because I'm Chinese, but I also like to cook Japanese food, and I like to cook Malaysian food, although I'm very bad. The curry paste really helps. But so we make sure we kind of cater to the Asian American demographic on how we shop and how we eat.
Damn, you killed it with that speech.
Oh yeah.
All right, let me take this in. So for those of you who are drinking Luna right now, so there's actually
I didn't
a
even
letter.
ask you a question.
Oh, I know. I had to plug. Let me just get my little piece in here. So we have a letter on each one of the cans. Our tagline is Asian Americana in the can. Like that's kind of what we're trying to build. Is, you know, it's that, you know, so many brands that refer to themselves as an Asian inspired brand. Fuck that. I am not an Asian inspired person. I'm an Asian American. Like that to me is so important. It's a really unique kind of blend of cultures, right? Like just the fact of like, you know, you walk into a Chinese restaurant and you're like, you feel that twinge of guilt because you can't actually order fluently in your native language. Like that's a very unique thing that happens to people with hyphenated identities, right? Going to language school on Sunday, or like these are all things that are us, and that identity needs to be talked about more and more. And so like I think for us, like that's what our thing is. With Lunar, we're an Asian craft hard seltzer, Asian American craft hard seltzer, and hard seltzer is such an American thing. Like obviously we Chuhai existed in Japan, but we in true American fashion we took that and said, oh, it's ours now, right? And hard seltzer is such an approachable and an accessible format that we felt that it made a lot of sense for us to take flavors that maybe for some of us in this room are much more familiar and nostalgic, but for other people, lychee might be something so new and so quote unquote exotic. But to pair that in a very approachable format with real lychee puree, which we use, like to make it really mirror the experiences that we've had with that flavor. Like that's kind of what we're about at Lunar. And so to go back to like building Asian America, this product like is a very Asian American thing. In China or in Taiwan, like what is this? It's an American thing, And so this is this unique intersection of worlds that we live in at Lunar. So I don't know. I don't even know what question I was answering. I was just trying to get.
Do you want to talk about our R&D process for Asian manufacturers? Because it's kind of like
Yeah. So similarly to I think Kevin's experience, our concept is how can we take all of these cultural flavors and adapt it and make it our own. And that kind of speaks throughout our manufacturing process and our R&D process, which actually takes like over a year for any flavor to be really developed. And there's a lot of back and forth because our manufacturers are based in Southeast Asia, they're in Thailand, they're in Taiwan, and for them to appreciate our specificities and like the distinct taste that we want and using the high quality ingredients that we deem appropriate for our brand, it's a process that they sometimes don't really understand, which is why it takes so long. So we put in a lot of effort and time for them to understand that so that we can bring those flavors here via our snacks in the way that we think would appeal to not only the Asian Americans here, but also to white Americans or other types of Americans, right? Because we're really about spreading Asian culture, and we feel that it's great to do so in a room full of Asians where we kind of understand each other, but I think it's a lot more profound when we can spread Asian culture to people who don't know about it and who can find an avenue through our products to learn to appreciate it.
I think specific to Tochi Snacks, it's an interesting dynamic because both my brother and myself are from Singapore, so we grew up in a non-American Asian household, right? And Dina grew up in America, and so she is an Asian American. And so when we are going through the R&D process, it's a very we argue a lot because me and my brother are like, this is not Asian enough, this is not Singaporean enough, this tastes like like nachos with like sriracha on it or something like that. And she'd be like,
oh my gosh,
this tastes so good, or and so it was really that kind of like coming from both sides of the planet where eventually we converge on a product that we think satisfies both quotas. So obviously there's some compromises that have to be made, but I think we all stand behind what we have today, and we are launching some new flavors soon, and that's really something that I think we are pretty proud of.
Speaking of launching new flavors, we talked a lot about your past and present. Now we wanted to move on to future. I guess, what is next for your companies, like flavors?
Yeah. So I think everyone kind of knows us for being one of the salted egg brands. And I think after the past 2 years or so, after all the love and support that we've gotten from you guys, we're finally ready to expand into new and other iconic Asian flavors. So we have a launch coming up soon. We're targeting for July, hoping for no shipping delays. But we're launching a new line of flavors, and they're inspired by different Asian cultural backgrounds. So more to come on that, and we're also doing a huge rehaul on our branding to accommodate for the new flavors. So more to come.
Wait.
So I know Lunar you guys just work with Keshi, and that's
We
like
did.
insane to me because he is so good. We actually play Kitsby, Keshi at Kitsby literally like on repeat sometimes because it's perfect cafe music, and it's like perfectly sad boy.
Yeah, sad boy. Sad boy king.
Not like when you're gonna cry while eating dessert, but like still like nostalgic, happy. But I wanted to see what's in the future for you, Lunar, and all these collaborations.
Yeah, Keshi was mad random. Keshi's team loves Lunar, and so they're like, for his latest album, Gabriel, he was like, hey, do you want to do some custom cans? And so there are some pretty cool cans out there that have Keshi's like face on each one, which is pretty cool. And each one is like, so it's all 4 flavors, right? Yuzu, lychee, passion fruit, and Korean plum, and each one has like a different Keshi for the flavor. It's pretty cool. I don't know. We recently did a collaboration line. It's our heritage line where we partner once a year for AAPI. We partner with local restaurants to make these like basically really fucking cool flavors. This year ours was with Bonnie's in Greenpoint. We did a Cantonese American flavor salted kumquat. We also partnered with Winson in Brooklyn. It's a Taiwanese American restaurant, and we did the Teresa Tang in homage to the famous Asia's Queen of Pop. And we also did a flavor with Jeju Noodle Bar in West Village, which is a mint omija, or Shisandra berry. Those are sold out now online, but you can still get them at the restaurants if you guys want to go there and like support the business and try one of these limited edition flavors. We're doing that again next May, so keep your eyes out. But we will be doing a limited edition flavor in September with a brand that you guys may know. So anyways, keep your eyes peeled. Follow us at Drink Lunar.
And then we have a lot of exciting stuff in the works too, but you should keep your eyes peeled. We are always growing our catalog and are always growing the brands that we host, but also launching a few initiatives of our own. Something that's maybe recurring, so that's a hint. And we hope to launch that next month.
Awesome. So going into our funner part of this panel, I'm going to be asking you guys a few questions. Sorry. I want you guys down the line to name a favorite dish you guys grew up eating, since we're in the food industry. Yeah, and you can start.
Hainanese chicken rice.
Oh my god, I don't know how to say this in English.
Say it in Chinese. Or
蚂蚁上树.
Ooh, ants climbing the tree. It's like
Ants climbing the tree.
Yeah.
beef noodle soup.
Oh, Taiwanese. Oh, that's good.
I like the tomato egg.
That was my second.
All right, okay, last week it was hilarious because I asked the same questions, and when I asked, name a favorite dish you make now, everyone was like, it was the hardest question, but I'm sure you guys, like in the food industry, it's gonna be a little bit better this week.
So one of my hobbies is I collect Japanese knives. And so I make a lot of Japanese food, and most specifically sashimi, sushi, and things like that. I've always been enamored with, the culture of sushi and how they age the fish and all that kind of stuff. So I've been experimenting a lot with that.
I make a lot of salads. A lot of salads.
No, it's true.
I'm glad you lowered the bar after.
It's true.
I needed this buffer.
Yeah, we got
She
a
makes
confirmation.
salads and she cooks for our dog, but she's never cooked for me.
Our dog needs a very specific diet, so that's why.
Is
Yeah.
he a pescatarian too?
No, he just likes a lot of pork. He's very picky. That's his dietary preference.
Protein only.
Protein.
Yeah, keto.
Yeah, I make a lot of salads. I know it sounds lame, but I do really like to eat my vegetables now that I'm older.
Quick poll: is making salads cooking? Yes or no? Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
Is sashimi cooking?
Okay, yeah. You guys both passed the test. All right. Quick poll number 2: is preparing Trader Joe's food cooking?
Yes.
Yes. All right, I cook Trader Joe's.
Which one's your favorite?
Yeah.
Ooh. They have this bibimbap, which is like super, or this Korean like fried rice thing, which is like super inauthentic but pretty good. Put in the skillet, just like toss it a few times. All right, boom, that's lunch. Yeah.
Nice. I'm actually a terrible cook, but I do cook a lot because we do recipe development for Umami Cart, and we all try out the recipes that we post every month. We post 4 recipes, always spanning like East Asian and Southeast Asian and vegetarian and non-vegetarian options. So if you ever need some inspo, you should check out our recipe blog, because if I can cook those, then like really anyone. You're looking, maybe like to start off, I would say like the pad krapao recipe is one of my go-to, really good.
All right, name your favorite AAPI personality. Can be anyone, can be someone you know, can be a celebrity, someone that you really look up to.
Michelle Yeoh.
Oh.
I mean, I think, well, I guess growing up, Michelle Yeoh specifically was like, well, so Southeast Asian AAPI representatives are not that many, right? And growing up, I think one of the iconic movies that she acted in was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's a Malaysian on screen. I'm not Malaysian, but Malaysia's next to me, so that counts.